I'd like to welcome everybody to another House of Bricks live event. I'm sure you've been following us on all of our social media channels. If you're not, you're at least on LinkedIn and engaging with our content. Definitely want to make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter to stay up to date on current events. And it's really incredible to think that we started the House of Bricks just a little bit over a year ago. You've seen some of the amazing guests on our podcasts. We launched business advisory services, and most recently launched our StartupX Accelerator program. And for any accelerator out there, I would love to see if their first class could stand up to the quality of companies that we have. We have companies at seed stage raising a Series A, valuations from 10 to 30 million, already getting some great traction in the first couple of weeks. And each week we are featuring some of our founders. The purpose of that is number one, just to leverage the House of Bricks platform that we've invested a lot of time, money, and blood, sweat, and tears in building it brick by brick to build a strong foundation. And I couldn't ask for a stronger foundation than what we have at this point in time, and just going to continue to do this. So if you are a founder out there, these are events that you should attend. We can always learn from others. I share some of the best practices that I've learned, failing 90% of the last 27 years, but just never giving up and continuing to press forward to the goal. And people always talk about enjoying the journey, which is true, but the best way to enjoy that is surrounding yourself with like-minded people that want to climb the mountain with you. And there's really three types of relationships everyone should have. And I say it repeatedly because people always want to 10x their business and 10x their life. Well, the way to do that is through relationship capital. So find a mentor, find an advisor, someone that's taken bullets for you that you may not have to take on your startup battlefield. Find some peers to climb the mountain with you. You can learn from others, share struggles, and grow together. And then most importantly is finding someone else to mentor. Wherever you're at in life, you have a story that you can tell and things that you've overcome in your life that can inspire someone else to get to where you are. And today we have very special guests, the founders of Neurocycle and Dr. Caroline Leaf and her daughter Dominique. So welcome to the House of Bricks.
Thank you. Hi.
And I see Mac is there as well. Sorry, I only saw Caroline. So, well, first of all, start with you, Dr. Leaf. Huge fan of your material, Switch On Your Brain. I know all of us entrepreneurs need that because we're burning at both ends 24/7. But before we get into Neurocycle, if you could just tell our audience a little bit about you and some of the work that you've done over the last couple of years, several years.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I've been in the field for nearly 4 decades now, so it's quite long. Yeah. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist and communication pathologist and audiologist, and basically study the mind-brain-body connection, which is psychoneurobiology. And I started out clinically and doing research and helping people with all kinds of problems like dementias and learning disabilities and traumas and autism. So neurological stuff plus emotional-based stuff. And over the years and in my training and research, felt that there just wasn't great systems in place to really help empower people to heal. They were kind of kept them almost getting people stuck and reliant on other people. So I started developing systems to help people to understand their thought life and understand how to manage their mind. And that's when I got into understanding the difference between the mind and the brain and thoughts, and realized that we actually are able to develop the skill of changing our mind, using our mind to change our mind, and therefore in the process changing our brain, which is neuroplasticity. So our mind's not our brain, our mind changes the brain, and the brain is a filter or responder. And based on that research, I developed a system called the Neurocycle. It's gone through many iterations and development over the years and research, and it has had different names, and currently it's called the Neurocycle, which is the system of how we get information into our mind-brain-body network and how that becomes part of us as our memories and drives us. So this conversation, for example, is we're listening, it's going in, our mind is taking this information, it's going, and the mind is putting it into the brain and body and building a network. So this is a good conversation we're having, but sometimes we have abusive things happening, or we have bad things happening, or politics, whatever, life. And those things happen, and that builds into the mind-brain-body network in a distorted way. So instead of building a healthy network, it builds a distorted network, and as it gets stronger, so it drives us in the wrong direction. So the neurocycle helps us to recognize, is based on that, how thoughts become part of our network, how they disrupt us or enhance us. And the neurocycle then takes advantage of that process, or uses that process consciously to help you recognize when you're not operating it, when things are disrupting your life, abuse, grief, whatever, and how you can recognize those signals, and how you can find the thought, which is the experience that they're attached to, and then deconstruct that and reconstruct it so that it doesn't drive you crazy, but it drives you in a way that you can actually move forward. So everything that happens to us is always with us. We can't eliminate anything from our life stories, but what we can do is redesign what they look like in our networks, and therefore redesign how they play out into the future. And that's in essence what the neurocycle does.
No, that's fantastic. And one of the things that you mentioned, which is just perfect for what we're talking about today. So we've developed a framework we called SIMPLE for entrepreneurs. So you have your strategy, like where are you now? Where do you want to go? The I stands for innovation. So, what are you trying to do? Which often is actually doing less better than doing more. Entrepreneurs, we're always trying to add on more things. Then we talk about the mindset, which, Neurocycle helps address. But the one thing I wanted to narrow in on is the P in SIMPLE, which is patterns. So you mentioned systems. What patterns, how do we identify patterns as the entrepreneur? Because in a startup, ideas are great, but it really boils down to the entrepreneur. How can they recognize both good and bad patterns, and what are some ways that they could potentially lean more into good patterns and break bad patterns?
So that a pattern has become a habit. So anything that's a pattern means it's repeating. So it's a way of thinking that we have developed a thought in the network, and then that's driving how we show up. So a pattern is recognizing that is a thought that's become a habit. And it takes about 9 weeks for something to become a habit. So if we've done something for months on end, it's a very strong established pattern, but it doesn't mean it can't change. And the way we change that is through self-regulation. So it's the ability that we have, an amazing ability as humans to stand back and observe ourselves, and to observe how we are showing up in life. Look at our, look at our relationships, look at what's happening in our work, look at how we're managing anger, look at how we're managing irritation, look at how we are irritable or functioning well, tiredness. We can stand back and observe ourselves, and we can objectively analyze what are those signals, and then track those to, okay, these are signals, these are a pattern of signals. What pattern of thoughts are they attached to? And that in that process, what we do is we bring the thought into the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is a slow part of us, but a very active part of us. When I say it brings into, that thought is living in the non-conscious. The non-conscious is the biggest, fastest part of us that never stops. It stores everything, all the good and bad and the ugly, plus it has wisdom. So what we want to do is, from the pattern has signals, we identify the signals, which shows us explains the pattern and how it's showing up in your life. And then when you do that, you bring that action, brings the thought into the conscious mind, because those signals are attached to the pattern, which is attached to a thought. So the minute that we start creating that awareness, we can then dive deep and say, okay, well, what is this attached to? What is behind this? What's the story behind this? How is this showing up in the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how? And then how did I get here? Kind of like a tree. You look at the branches, and then how did I get there? What was my thinking? The tree trunk. What's the source, the origin, the cause, the roots? And you can track that process and deconstruct and find the source of the pattern. And then you can't pull the tree out and throw it away, unfortunately, but you can put plant food on. You can redesign the roots. You can restructure and reconceptualize and say, okay, well, I was doing that. This has come from there. This is why I'm doing that. Maybe I need to do this. And you rebuild, you reconstruct that to build a new pattern. And then you stabilize that healthy pattern into a new process. And that's a daily thing. It takes about 15 minutes a day. 15, 20 minutes is your sweet spot. And you do that over around about 63 days. And then
I'm glad you just said that, because there's, now social media it's great for spreading the word, but it's also terrible for misinformation. And I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years and building multiple companies. Like when you're building a company, you don't have time for an hour and a half morning routine. Like I got to sit in the cold pool for 20 minutes, then I got to go in the sauna, then I got to meditate. Like, when do people work? So I'm glad you gave us that window of 15 to 20 minutes, because that's manageable, at least what I've seen in my life. And you may have some actual science to support it, but like, people, especially entrepreneurs, try to tackle too much. So they go from never working out to, I'm going to work out 7 days a week. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go to the cold pool. I'm going to do my gratitude journal. And then after 7 days, they just quit. Do you actually go back to a worse place if you start and fail versus starting small and making progress over time?
That's an excellent and very important question, because with the well-being industry as it stands at the moment, we can get ourselves so stressed out trying to de-stress. So the whole thing is there's so many different ways you can do it. And you must find your own pattern. But the thing is that what people neglect in this whole process is mind. Mind drives everything. Your mind is your aliveness. So when you dead, your mind goes out, your body does nothing anyway. So if you're going to get benefit from anything, the breathing, the whatever works for you, and there's so many great things you can do, you need to make sure that your mind's in the right place. So that's why I recommend, take a 15-minute to 20 minutes. And if you think of it, that's kind of how long it takes you to get ready in the morning. If you have a shower, get dressed, get yourself, that's around about a 15, 20-minute process. So you literally, as you wake up in the morning, you could do a little bit of breathing and meditation and whatever you like. I've got many different mind hacks that you can do in that 5-minute moment. And then for 15 minutes while you're getting ready, you can actually do the neurocycle. So in the same time that you wake up and get ready, you can have done all of that stuff. And if you want to do more, you can. But if you don't have time, you've got your mind set in the right place to be able to then use the rest of the day more effectively.
I think Adam's question was more, does it go back worse?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
If you don't deal with it, it's going to go back worse.
Yeah, like it's just kind of and it may just be a self-confidence thing, like starting something and not like starting too big, failing. And then, I've kind of felt like you almost go back in a worse place than having not started at all. But
I gave a solution before I gave the answer. So yeah, the solution there, I try to give you a simple solution, but yes, it's if you don't you do all those things and you feel like you haven't succeeded, people feel worse. But the whole thing is, it's just do what you can is really, it's okay to not be okay is very, very key in this thing. And just start off slowly with one thing. If you can only do one thing like breathe, that's fine. Just a couple of breathing exercises, just be kind to yourself and keep trying.
And in the app, so I downloaded it last night, and I am now a paying subscriber, and
wonderful.
Wanted to, I saw you kind of have 3 milestones that you talk about, the 21 day, 42, and 63. Can you talk about like what happens at each milestone and why you chose those numbers?
The healing journey.
So that's called the healing journey, and it's the science that I've been working on for all these almost 4 decades. And it's basically how long does it take to rewire those patterns that we spoke about, which are thoughts. And so you go through phases in the healing journey. So for all the protein changes and chemical changes to happen in the brain and the body, and for all the energy changes and gravitational fields and electromagnetic fields, all those networks to change, it's a daily change that happens over around about 63 days. For big stuff, you might sometimes like big things patterns that are very established, or traumas that are very established that impact entrepreneurship, whatever happens to us impacts every aspect of our lives. The bigger stuff, you may need longer time periods. The first 21 days is the harder part. It's where you are facing, okay, this is how I'm showing up. This is the thought that this is coming from, and you're learning, you're finding the source, you're going down from the branches to the trunk to the roots, and you're facing stuff. It's hard. You get worse before you get better. It's kind of like when you do exercise initially, or you have surgery, you get cut up to get healed, or you get sore to get muscle strong. So the first 21 days is very active learning, breaking down and learning the new way of thinking. And then from day 22 more or less to day 63 is what we call the stabilization phase. So the first 21 days is where you break down and build. Now you build something new, but this is where a lot of people think, okay, well, I've done it. And then they stop. And then they revert back to previous behaviors. And then they get mad at themselves and totally frustrated and think, well, I put in all this effort, it's hopeless. I can't seem to change. The reason is because if you just do 21 days, you've only built the new thought that you built, not yet a habit. It's small, it's weak, it's got to compete with a bunch of other thoughts, and it can very easily revert back to what it was because you don't eliminate what you were, you just take this energy out of it, because energy is never lost, it's only transferred. So the second 42 days are stabilizing this information and making it stronger and building it into a habit. So think of it like a plant. The first 21 days, you've got this tree that you break down and now you're healing it and whatever, but it's small, it's not big yet, it's not strong yet because you've done this healing process. It's like any surgery once again and workouts. Then the next 42 days is where you still do the Neurocycle daily, but it's slightly different. It's more of a stabilization phase. So you're adding energy, watching the plant is getting bigger and bigger. It has to get a certain amount of energy, the thought, electromagnetic energy added to it. And the proteins have to form in a certain way and the chemicals have to flow in a certain way. And all that has to work together. There has to be a strong established connection between the mind, brain, and body. And that takes another 42 days. So all the way that I guide you through the next 42 days is doing that. It's making it big enough that it can then become a useful habit that you can, and useful means you can actually use it. So not, oh, I worked on that and it didn't change my life. You've actually created a new pattern that is actually impacting your life. One day you say, hey, I'm doing that. I didn't even realize I was aware that I'm doing that.
That's great. And, in our culture, right, we want everything to happen overnight, but there is a process. And I know just from reading your books, like the best time to do this is in the morning. Your mind is ready to be renewed and transformed. So whatever time people can commit to a morning routine, something is better than nothing, and consistency is better than a lot and not being able to follow through with it. And so Dominique, want to chat with you a little bit. I know we talked yesterday, but love to hear a little bit about you and your role in Neurocycle.
Sure. Well, my career started in Hollywood. I was training to become an agent, working with some really big names. And I got really burnt out from that. Hollywood is a terrible place. It's very superficial. And so I just once I left Hollywood, I asked my parents if I could just kind of help with the company a little bit. And it's been, 6-7 years now. So that helping out a little bit turned into me becoming COO of Neurocycle. And I absolutely love it. I love that. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I said, one of my favorite things about working with this company is you can see the direct impact everything we do in the company has on people. We get amazing testimonies and reviews from not just on Google and iTunes, but just the emails people send us about how it's saved their lives. Or we had a police officer who was completely burnt out and traumatized and PTSD, and how the Neurocycle essentially kept him from taking his life and going down a really dark path, and how it's just helped marriages and healed people. And I absolutely love to see that and work with my family every day. No matter what, whether we get funding or not, whatever happens, this is my legacy, it's their legacy, and I'm committed to making it a success at no matter what, I will make it a success, because it's, like I said, it's our legacy. And I really love it. It's really been a challenge learning how to navigate the tech space, especially. None of us really have that background. And so we've had to learn a lot of trial by fire, a lot of learning to fly the plane as we're falling, which is obviously the typical entrepreneur journey. But that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm so excited to be part of House of Bricks and why I wanted to join. I had a call with Michael and he really did a great job selling me on it and the community, and just everyone here is on a similar journey. And I love that there's a safe space to ask questions and learn from experts. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm waiting to see Michael, if he's watching, to put in the chat that he doesn't sell anybody. So that's, we've built a community that definitely provides a lot of value. And again, like I shared earlier, it comes through failing. We have a test, fail, learn, grow mindset. So you're flying the plane. Sure, we're trying to, put fuel in it before you run out. Fix the wing, close the doors, but you're in the right place. All entrepreneurs struggle in this area, but it's the power of being around like-minded people or people that have, there it is, Mike said, I don't sell anybody. So that I was just waiting for that to happen. So funny.
It was his charming personality. He didn't sell me on anything. He was saying the things I needed to hear, and that I needed a community.
Yeah, no, I know. It's nothing you said wrong. It's just it's a joke him and I have going back and forth. So, well, Mac, I want to kick it over to you too. And first of all, I'm completely inspired by your family because I lost my dad unexpectedly. Legacy became very important to me. About 15 years ago. I have 4 sons, so I love just seeing the family business. Just want to talk to you a little bit, get to know you, and what role you're playing with Neurocycle.
I always start off and make a joke and say, Caroline's the business and I manage the business.
Okay, that's it.
No, long term, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I learned from my parents, who were either the richest or poorest in any given city, had some great ideas, came to fruition, and some terrible ones that didn't. I've owned several businesses, and some have been good and some have not been so good. But just prior to coming to South Africa, I really experienced the concept of cash flow. I built about 8,500 houses for the government, and the money doesn't come easy, and you've got to manage the money. So that became my specialty, cash flow, how much is coming in, how much is going out. And I think a lot of businesses fail. They have great profit and losses and they have great balance sheets, but the cash flow is the key, how much is coming in and you're getting out. So, if you paid attention to that, you have a chance to success. So we started this Switch on Your Brain when we came to this country in 2007 and registered it in Texas. And initially it was Caroline and I doing events. Caroline would speak at churches, corporations, and so on. And I would be the one setting up the books and the audio visual and doing all the arrangements and flights and so on. And then we expanded the business. And I must say, I'm very glad I got family. And it's a trial sometimes with family. You don't always agree on everything. But
everyone's laughing. It's okay. Yeah.
But we all get it. Yeah, we have arguments and then we resolve them, which is great.
That's right. They're called team building experiences in our house. So you can't get stronger without resistance.
Exactly.
But what Dominique and Jessica bring to the business is, I'm 69, so I grew up, marketing was a lot different, didn't have social media. We had marketing agency, we placed advertisements all over the place, and we did promotions, the standard marketing stuff, pricing and all the rest of it. So social media was just not my cup of tea. And so it's been valuable having them to give a different perspective. I've had to change my thinking about a lot of things. So I don't want to be a dinosaur and just die off there. I wanted to be with it and understand it and slowly getting a handle on it. So thank God for Dominique and Jessica and also Caroline managing social media, helped me to understand the avenues of marketing that are open to people that we don't always take advantage of properly. So that's where we're at the moment. And I'm CEO, so I just kind of check all the contracts, dot the I's, cross the T's, pay the bills,
all the exciting stuff.
Yeah, cash flow.
That's right. Well, cash flow is very important. Getting into technology will be an adjustment for you. It does take investment to get to that recurring revenue number. So you're investing in the technology, and it does take time to happen. But once that hockey stick growth kicks in, and your valuation will go through the roof with a subscription based model, which you're approaching it exactly the right way. One other question I wanted to ask you, Dr. Leaf, was how dangerous is misinformation? And the reason I'm asking this is because you go on social media, and 1 out of a billion people have the experience and knowledge that you do, but like everyone's an expert in mental health, and they're diagnosing themselves and also diagnosing their friends. Like, hey, you need to watch this reel. How dangerous is that? Or have you noticed kind of like a lot of misinformation out there?
Oh, for sure. In fact, I'm just finishing a book at the moment that's going to be published in early next year. And there's a whole chapter on this, help overdiagnosing or self-diagnosing. It's a huge problem because our natural tendencies to try, our human mind, our natural tendencies to try and search for reasons behind how we feel and what we're experiencing. We're desperate to find that. So we will look into whatever source, and our sources currently are technology, and it's fantastic. I mean, to have access to the information, but because of people getting sucked in and not being self-regulating themselves enough, they can get drawn into the wrong thing, self-diagnose, and that is a huge problem. So it's very important that we have an awareness of this, and there is a lot of research coming out now showing that the awareness of mental health has increased, which is wonderful, but at the same time, it's leading to this overdiagnosis and self-diagnosis, and kind of medicalizing the normal things of life. And we've got to go through stuff. You said something earlier on about the flying the plane and growth, fail, growth. What did you say? Fail, grow.
Test, fail, learn, grow.
Okay, so now that's building resistance. So we have to. So that's basically a summary of if we just think everything. Okay, well, I'm feeling sad. These symptoms on TikTok tell me that I'm now have got clinical depression, or I feel I don't like socializing. So now suddenly I'm autistic. It's called concept creep. It kind of then gives you an excuse to become a victim, potentially, to not build enough resilience and resistance. We just have got to be careful of pathologizing and medicalizing misery. We need to experience all the emotions. All emotions are good, and we have to go through hard stuff, and in order to build the resistance to get through the other side. So it is a major problem, and awareness. The only way to deal with and tackle this is have discussions, make people aware, parents to tell children to have discussions about what is real, what is the truth. Let's look at this in a balanced way. So balance the misinformation with good information. As humans, we also have an inclination to be drawn towards the negative, not because we have a negativity bias. That's a lot of nonsense. We hear a lot about that. We actually have a wired for love positivity bias. So we're drawn towards the negative to solve the problem. So if we see something negative, it's an imbalance, and we're drawn to the imbalance to restore balance. But in being drawn to the imbalance, if you immerse yourself, whatever you are immersing yourself in, without self-regulating, your mind-brain-body network will merge with it. And that's what's happening. A lot of people, our young adolescents and adults, and even older adults, are merging with the environment and not asking questions, which leads to the conspiracy theories and all that kind of thing. So yes, it is a problem, but we can fix it.
Yeah, and it's fixable through the Neurocycle app. I'm not advertising, but I've been reading your books for a long time, so I'll just go ahead and promote you, and you didn't ask me to do it. But one last thing as we kind of wrap up here is our past, right? From my perspective, like the only place it really exists is in your mind. Like your past doesn't carry forward with you, but how do you really deal with there's one like perspective of, hey, that was the past and forget about it, and maybe you had a traumatic childhood, or whatever experiences that you're kind of carrying with you every day. And actually the House of Bricks mantra is to use every experience like a brick, right? You can either carry it with you and it weighs you down, or lay it down to build a strong foundation. How do you deal with your past in a healthy way, as opposed to just like, hey, that happened to me, move on? Like, you understand the question, the difference.
Yes.
Like there's a way to deal with it in a healthy way, versus just, well, hey, that was yesterday, and move on.
Absolutely. We can't do that because your past is always with you, and in your conscious mind is very, very stuck in present, past, future. But you as a person and your conscious mind is only a tiny part of you, percentage, 5%, 10% max. So most of you is this deep, non-conscious spiritual part of you, and there's no time difference there. Present, past, and future blends. So everything that you experience is with you always. What we do consciously is try and reconstruct and learn from it. So the past is always something that we can learn from. And we can get stuck in regret for the past, but you can't change the past. So it's learning how to acknowledge and say, okay, this is the past, this is what's happened, what can I learn from it? It's a very deliberate and intentional process of focusing on the elements of the past, not just letting them swirl all over the place and get yourself stuck in a rumination sort of trap. But it is to say, okay, I'm going back into the past. This I'm regretting, I'm wishing, I'm doing if only, could have, should have, would have. It's catching that, it's acknowledging that, it's timed indulging. So you timed indulging, you allocate a time period to it. I always recommend the sweet spot of around 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. You itemize, list it, write it down. You go through a process where you take the power of it to consume you and you turn it into something constructive, because it's always going to be with you, but you turn it into something constructive. So we have something called what we call the reminiscence bump, and that's that between the ages of 10 and 30, those memories are the most powerful and that we recall quite clearly. And it's quite interesting. So at whatever age you are past that, those between that time frame, there's certain time points in that 10 to 30 year age group that we can remember and learn from. So if we reflect back, those are very often in that time period is what will jump out at us. And we can talk to our as an older person, we can talk back to our previous selves and we can learn from it and we can come at this objectively. So it's a skill we can develop to use the past in a very constructive way, because it's there anyway. It's swirling in your unconscious. So we consciously want to take that and make it work for us. And that's sort of that indulged reminiscence that you do with whatever pops up, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And, part of the past too is, and I don't know the percentage, but a lot of times it's wildly inaccurate. It's kind of like watching a car accident. You have 3 people see it and they all tell you a different story. We tend to frame our past, just in what I've seen in interacting with people, it's not always accurate. Like we're not the most dependable people to remember certain events. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that as well.
It's true, because our current moments are very influential, and we look at the past through our current experiences. So that's the view. The sunglasses of the present are going to sort of disperse a kind of view of the past, and so things get added and people tell you things. So yes, the memories are there, and you have to do quite a lot of digging to get down to the accurate level of memory, because things do get added and we've got to kind of almost step out of our current in order to really evaluate the past. And that's also a skill. It's something you can't just randomly do it. You've actually got to be quite deliberate and intentional to try and sift out what's real and what's just been added.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that's one of the values of having advisors, coaches, mentors, even people around you. We can't see clearly as an entrepreneur, like Dominique said earlier, like you're flying the plane, you're trying to, fix it while you're flying. Like you're too busy in the business to work on the business. So no matter where you are in life, having an advisor, having a counselor, mentor, also mentoring other people helps you be accountable to yourself, that you're telling other people to do things that increases your accountability as well. So I want to thank the entire Leaf family joining today. If you haven't read any of Dr. Caroline Leaf's books, please do check her out on YouTube, many of the social media channels, and definitely check out their app in the App Store. I know it's an early version. Technology always has room for improvement, but we want to support Neurocycle on this journey because I know what you're doing is going to change the world, and we're happy to be a part of it. So I want to thank everyone for joining today. House of Bricks Live. Stay tuned for more of our founder spotlights, and everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.